Good afternoon. Thanks for being here for the press conference following this Foreign Affairs Council, which took place today. I will leave immediately the floor to the High Representative and Vice President Federica Mogherini, and then we'll take your questions. Acha VP, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and I apologize for the delay, but this is part of what you now used to, and the ministers as well. But we really had a very intense day of Foreign Affairs Council that will now continue also with our defense ministers on Libya. I will come to that in a moment. The main point on our agenda today has been the external aspects of migration, where we had also a working session with the UNHCR, the High Commissioner Grandi, a point on Eastern Partnership, an exchange with the Colombian High Commissioner for Peace, and as I said, now we'll continue on a point on Libya. On migration, the main outcome of our discussions of our meeting was about the need to continue and even increase the focus we keep as Europeans altogether on both routes, the Eastern Mediterranean one, with an assessment of the implementation of the agreement with Turkey that we also discussed with the UNHCR, with the High Commissioner Grandi. We will have a progress report adopted in the, discussed and I believe adopted in the College next Wednesday, and the Interior Ministers will discuss this at length later this week. But we also had obviously a first assessment on the external side of our work on this. And we stressed the fact that now what is essential is that all commitments, especially on the resettlement and relocation, are key to make the implementation sustainable and to have it really working. A lot of the discussion focused on the Central Mediterranean route, where we have focused on our constant, ongoing, integrated approach. You know very well we developed since last year, and let me remind you, this day, exactly 1 year ago, we were facing the more than 800 victims in the Mediterranean that somehow provoked finally a reaction on the European level, with the European Council deciding many different steps to be taken. So we reviewed all the external aspects of our migration work, focusing especially on the Central Mediterranean route, where our integrated approach as the European Union has focused on different issues. We reviewed all of them together with the ministers, assessing what and how far we have gone on the intentions we had put forward 1 year ago, and also the way forward on some of them, starting from the work we're doing to dismantle the smugglers and traffickers business model. I reported to the ministers about the outcomes of my visit to the flagship of Operation Sophia last Friday in the Mediterranean Sea off the shores of Lampedusa, an operation that has so far in the last 6 months arrested 68 suspected traffickers and smugglers, neutralized 104 vessels, and saved 13,000 lives in the Mediterranean, in the international waters where we are operating, among them 800 children. And I think this is particularly important because we often focus on the limits of our common action in welcoming or protecting the life of people. I think that we can be proud of a common European Union action at sea that is able to save lives, where last year, exactly 1 year ago, we were observing minutes of silence, looking at people losing their lives in the Mediterranean. The second part of our very important work on that route is our work with Africa. You know well that following the Valletta summit, the Trust Fund has started. We have already allocated more than 700 million euros to projects that have already started in different countries, targeted to sustain the not only national authorities but also and mainly local projects in targeted regions where we see most of the flows originating, to make sure that alternatives in terms of economic opportunities are offered, but also food and water security and a cooperation with our partner countries of transit and origin. This is part also of our engagement with our African partners, not only African partners, also Asian partners, when it comes to high-level dialogues. You might remember 1 year ago I was tasked to initiate high-level dialogues on migration with a selected number of countries. We have done basically all of them so far. Minister Koenders for the presidency on my behalf just came back yesterday night, I think, from Mali, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, where he had these high-level dialogues at the highest level with presidents and foreign ministers. I did myself in the last weeks similar dialogues with Ethiopia, Nigeria, Sudan, Niger, and many others have been done in the past months. So we've basically covered all of them, which results in most cases, I would not go now in detail one country by country, but if you want we can provide details about that, have produced in most cases structured mechanism to exchange ideas and ways to have an effective cooperation on the management of the flows, including returns, but not only returns and readmissions, also, as I said, developing economic opportunities for the people of these countries. Another element of our work on the Central Mediterranean route is the work we're doing with the Sahel. This is an element that we will discuss also now as we will be dealing with Libya, as we see a clear interest on the European side, but also on our African friend side, to strengthen our cooperation with all the Sahel region, particularly the G5 Sahel. This is a matter of security for the Europeans, but this is also a matter of border management and control of the territory. It's a territory that is larger than the territory of the European Union, and it's a desert. So challenging, but we have decided to continue investing very much, even more than we are doing now, on a presence and a support to our partners in guaranteeing that they manage to control more the territory. In Agadez, for instance, where the 80% more or less of the flows going then to Libya pass in Niger, we have started our EU presence on the ground. You might remember Agadez was the first visit I paid in sub-Saharan Africa when I think that was during the summer, to meet the local authorities and plan with them alternative projects we can do for the youth of Agadez to try and dismantle the business network, the business model of the smugglers. We have decided to work on the regionalization of our CSDP missions in the area. We have both EU and member states presence in the region of the Sahel. We've decided to work on coordinating much more our presence there and to support our partners in the Sahel to face the challenge of migration and refugee flows through their territories. Italy, under this point, has shared its non-paper with proposals that we welcomed. Most of its elements support ongoing work and activities that we are doing already, and we believe that it constitutes a positive political contribution to keep the focus on the current work and to increase the engagement combined of European institutions and member states that are called now to complement the strands of work that we have put in place at the European level. Shortly on the other points, I apologize, I've been a little bit long. With the High Commissioner Grandi, we obviously discussed, as I said, about the implementation of the agreement with Turkey. the cooperation we have with UNHCR in Greece, all along the Western Balkan route, but also the work we do together inside Syria, which is essential if we want to tackle the issue of the so many internally displaced people in Syria. Also our common work in Jordan, Lebanon and Iraq. We started looking at possibilities to work together jointly, European Union, UNHCR, IOM, with the Libyan authorities in Libya, once the security conditions would allow that. But let me say that he shared with us the fact that UNHCR, together with the IOM, is still and has always been continuing working inside Libya, and we have been supporting this work all along these difficult years, and we might look at increasing our cooperation there as well. But we also discussed one of the outcomes of my recent visit in Iran, which is working more on the Afghan refugees that are present on the Iranian territory, also on the Afghans that are internally displaced inside Afghanistan, this in order to, together with the UNHCR, stabilize their situation and address their needs. Obviously, we also tackled the internal refugee crisis inside Africa and inside different African countries. That is something where we cooperate a lot with the UNHCR on a daily basis. We had another point on the Eastern Partnership, just to flag to you, 1 year after the Riga summit, we will have an important ministerial meeting in May on the 23rd. We had today an in-depth discussion with the ministers to prepare the ministerial, and we had a very good common ground following similar discussions we had in the last months on individual relation we have with the 6 Eastern partners. Today the approach was more on the Eastern Partnership as a whole, as a regional approach. Last but not least at all, let me stress that actually we started with it. We had the opportunity to be debriefed by the Colombian High Commissioner for Peace, Jamarillo, on the state of play of the Colombian peace talks in Havana. I had the occasion of meeting with him and with the Foreign Minister, María Ángel Holguín, where I was visiting Havana a month ago. He shared with us the state of play. We discussed together with him the European support to the peace talks, to the finalization of the negotiations, and most of all, I would say, to the work we are ready to do together to make sure that the agreement can be sustainable and successful from day one of implementation, working on the early wins that will come for the Colombian population. I know this seems to be far away from the European political agenda today, but I'm convinced that the European role is also to identify its own added value in crises that geographically might seem far away from us, but where the European Union can change significantly the mood or the capacity to finalize an agreement, and in this case, if we manage to support the process and to get to an agreement, it would be the end of a 50-year-old conflict that would benefit a lot also, not only the region and Colombia, obviously, but also Europe, as we have strong links with the country. Now, we will proceed to a video conference with the Libyan Prime Minister, Sarraj, that I had on the phone this morning also. We will hear his assessment on the situation in Tripoli, on the political, but also security and social economic situation in the country. We will use this opportunity for sure with the defense and foreign ministers to express our political support, but also discuss with him priorities for concrete projects in different fields, in the economic field, in the security field, on humanitarian aid, on institution building, and following that we will have a discussion with the ministers, with the possibly, hopefully, inshallah, adoption of Council conclusions, after which I might maybe meet you again to share with you the state of play on this particular issue. Thank you. Apologize, it's been long, but it has been a long day. And I didn't cover Tunisia because we did it before.
it was indeed. Questions. So I have Alex, yes.